And the topic that I'm supposed to be speaking about is a little mini summary, a few points summarizing the topic that I discussed during this weekend. And then we'll invite Urmila to say she wants to speak about Lord Shiva. And I've understood there's some very nice things, entertaining ways of presenting about Lord Shiva. So you see Lord Shiva on the screen. And of course, we're Vaishnavas, and therefore we're not worshippers of Lord Shiva separate from Krishna, but our great acharyas have great affinity and affection for Lord Shiva, and that's the place I'd like to start. There's a nice illustration of Sanatana Goswami, one of our foremost acharyas in disciplic succession. And in a poem or a prayer to Lord Shiva, he writes, O Lord of gods, the supreme shelter of all beings, worshipped by siddhas and vidyadharas, master of all living entities, I offer my obeisances unto you. O Shambhu, O all-auspicious one, you bestow Krishna Bhakti. O carrier of Ganga and Vrishabha Dvaja, that is, he has a bull on his sign, his flag. I bow to you, O protector of the universe. Features of his personality and character. Jiva Goswami, another one of the great acharyas at our line, writes, Lord Shiva, who holds the moon on his head, long ago attained the nectar of devotion to Govinda. And Rupa Goswami offers the following prayer. I offer my respects to Lord Shiva, who is an ocean of mercy, the bestower of Krishna Bhakti, and the most peaceful personality. He is the Lord of all beings, and the wish-fulfilling tree for his devotees. Narottama Das Thakur, further in the line of disciplic succession, he writes, one who takes shelter of Lord Shiva and his pure devotion, such a person is my master, the beloved of Sri Radha. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur similarly writes, I offer my respects to Lord Shiva, who is always absorbed in bliss of serving Sri Hari and delights all his devotees. He takes great pleasure in serving the lotus feet of Lord Gora. And Shikshastaka, Shivastaka, this is extracted. Some of you, if you're on the mailing list or the circular list for the temple, Premananda should have uploaded this so you can receive a copy. And if you haven't, get yourself on that list so she can send you a copy. One of Lord Chaitanya's associates was Murari Gupta, and he wrote a book, Sri Chaitanya Charita Mahakavya. And in that book, he has this Shivashtakam. And I'm not going to go through it because you have it. But the purpose of all this is to show that our acharyas, here's Raghunath Das Goswami, similarly honoring Lord Shiva. This is the last of these little prayers. I take shelter of Shiva, who is known as Shiva Manjari in Vrindavan. Just like a bee attached to the lotus feet of Sri Radha, he renders service to her and offers everything to Lord Hari. So this is making reference, Raghunath Das is making reference to a pastime where Lord Shiva wished to participate in the rasa dance with Krishna and the gopis, but he was told, "Sorry, Charlie, you have to be in a gopi form, but we can take care of that." So they dipped him in a special sacred bath of water, and he came out as Shiva Manjari. And he was standing guard on the periphery of the rasa dance because he liked that position. He, a protector of the devotees. Now, some of you have been to Vrindavan, and those of you who have been to Vrindavan, most likely you've been to these two wonderful places, Varsana and Nandagram. And Nandagram, both, they're up on a hill. And shortly after Krishna was transferred back to his place of childhood, he was in Nandagram. And there was this very strange looking mendicant with snakes around his neck and crescent moon and looking very strange. And he came to the door of Nandagram, and Mother Jasoda received him cordially, but a little intimidated. Who are you, and what can I do for you, sir? So he said, I just want to see your child. And she was thinking, but maybe my child will cry and just seeing this strange looking person. So she didn't permit it. She didn't say no, but she didn't say yes. And so he went away disappointed. Lord Shiva went away disappointed. But all-knowing Krishna knew that Lord Shiva had come to see him, and he started crying. And crying. And sometimes children will cry and they stop. But he didn't stop. He was crying and crying, and she thought, maybe I've offended this sadhu who I didn't understand, but I'll go invite the sadhu to come and see my son, because that was his desire. So he said, no, it's okay. I'll just stay at a distance. And so this deity, this Shivalinga that you see, he is known as Nandeshwara Mahadev. So those of you that next time you go to Vrindavan, so many of you have been many times, go to this place. It's at the base of, there's a temple, and this is the deity in the temple. And you see surrounding the deity, there's Ganesh, there's the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, there's Lord Brahma, and there's Nandi, his bull carrier, in those four directions. And he, Lord Shiva, manifested, it is said, he manifested as this Shivalinga. And there's a little temple in a grove of trees not far from Tirkadamba at the base of Nandagram. And there he is, worshipping and protecting the personality of Godhead, as if the personality of Godhead needs a protector. But that's his mood at Nandeshwara Mahadev. So the point of all of this is our Vaishnavas, our Gaudiya, followers of Lord Chaitanya, and the followers of Lord Chaitanya have profound regard for Lord Shiva. Vaishnavanam Yatashambhu, the greatest of all Vaishnavas. And you're going to have the opportunity to hear something further about Lord Shiva as soon as I finish speaking. My understanding is Urmila is going to guide you in some very nice appreciations, further appreciations of Lord Shiva. And now, from my part, a little summary of what my participation in this time together this weekend, starting Friday evening and ending tomorrow morning. So for those of you that didn't catch anything, there's still another class tomorrow morning. Please come if you can. My discussion was based on, as you see on the screen here, this is Kapila Dev, an incarnation of Godhead, speaking to his mother Devahuti. And there's details and details of how that came to be. But along with the teachings of Sankhya, extensive, interesting, at the same time mind-spinning details of Sankhya philosophy. There's a little introduction to that in Bhagavad Gita, but more expansively here in Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam, and gradually his discussion of Sankhya leads to bhakti, naturally so. And so chapter 29 was our focus, and the title of that chapter is Explanation of Devotional Service, and exactly what he does as he explains devotional service. And one of the starting points is he explains what devotional service is, and then he gives this very nice description, not exactly definition, but description of pure devotional service. Because of time, I'm not going to read the Sanskrit, but here's the translation. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows toward the Supreme Lord. So that's a very nice, short description. At the very end of Canto of this chapter, there's a further elaboration. It's also very nice. So if you're interested at some point in time, check out chapter 29. It's very instructive. The main theme in this chapter is respect, because respect is an antidote for the obstacles for pure devotion. And when there is pure devotion, one becomes fully satisfied, as we find in Canto 1, Chapter 2, Yayatma Suprasidati. Those of you that like to chant Sanskrit verses, we have time, we can chant this verse together. Savai pungsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhok saje ahaitaki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation or dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be, two qualifications, unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So that's an objective. We want to be happy. Here's a non-Shastra statement, someone saying the same thing. Why look any further if you've discovered complete satisfaction? The principle is, when there's this higher taste, it's easier to give up the lesser taste. And therefore, the Bhagavatam wants to introduce us to that process by which a higher taste can be experienced. And then it becomes quite easy to give up the lesser taste. It's something like, a child can play for hours and hours and hours and hours doing some things. And we may be in a silly mood and play with those things. We can't do it like they do it. Hours and hours and hours. And want some more. That is, there's a happiness that supersedes just playing. And that happiness is easy to give up the lesser taste. That's a simple example. So, higher taste. And higher taste is complete satisfaction. Su prasidati, prasana and su prasana. Happiness and complete happiness. So that's the goal. We spent a little bit of time, a few times actually, discussing this. The goal of human endeavors is to become happy. Who will disagree? And in one of Jiva Goswami's commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, that part of his commentary is called Priti Sandarbha. Priti is like synonymous with prema, almost synonymous with prema. Means affection, love, loving affection, Priti. And the very first verse of this entire book, here's the statement that Jiva Goswami makes, and then he gives his support with other scriptures and explains it. The goal of human being is attaining happiness and destroying suffering. Complete happiness and destruction of suffering is attained only by priti for the Lord. So that's the target. That's the intention of devotional service. Complete satisfaction in love or affection for the personality of Godhead. So then, Jiva, then in his writings, in this chapter 29, there's 4 verses, summary verses, where Lord Kapila expresses to his mother, here's how to get there. This complete happiness and complete destruction of suffering. Those are nice goals. And it's a process of devotional service. And in the process of devotional service, one of the 4 verses presents worship of the deity. Therefore, in all of our temples, there's some deity. If not immediately in course of time, there's some deity. And many persons come to the temple, even if it's just to pay their respects to the deity, deity darshan. Very important in the beginning stages of spiritual life, and further cultivation from there. So then, Kapila Dev explains, however, there's some persons that want to identify themselves as practicing bhakti, but they don't understand bhakti at all, and they still express or contend to be engaging in bhakti. So one of our great acharyas, we already heard his name, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he, in his commentary on these verses of chapter 29, he writes, that Kapila Dev speaks with deliberately exaggerated anger. Why anger? Because people superficially say, yes, I follow bhakti, but really they don't even know what bhakti is. Why? Because they don't respect other living beings. Worship the deity, but not respecting that same deity expansion within the heart of all living beings as super soul. They don't see that, and they don't treat others accordingly. So this is the Vaishnava etiquette theme. And the antidote for that is respect. In 4 verses, we're going quickly through the chapter, verses 21 through 24 of chapter 29. In 4 successive verses, one after the next, Kapila Dev expresses that which blocks pure bhakti. Now, pure bhakti is very powerful. It doesn't require anything material to start it. It's not possible for something material to stop it. Like the sun shines in the sky. When it's daytime, the sun shines in the sky. Doesn't matter what the weather is. It's been cold, but the sun shines in the sky, regardless. However, if there's clouds in the sky, then the sun doesn't diminish, but our experience of the sun may diminish. The light of the sun and the heat of the sun may diminish if there's something blocking or intervening. And that something, according to these two acharyas, Vishwanath, Chakravarti Thakur, and Jiva Goswami, it's envy. Envy of others is resting upon envy of the Supreme Lord. So that's what we discussed. And even 4 times in different ways, in different degrees of intensity, he describes, you never achieve anything in your devotional service unless you understand the Lord is in every living entity. And then knowing that, respecting every living entity. And if one doesn't do that, then progress is very slow. And social relationships are also not so nice. To illustrate this, we discussed a little bit. I want to be vigilant about time. I'm doing all right. There's a famous story in Vrindavan, and the famous story goes like this. Once upon a time. All good stories start with once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a nice Brahmana that lived in West Bengal. We're not against West Bengal, by the way. But he lived in West Bengal, and he was very learned, very this and very that, very qualified in many ways, wealthy, so forth. And when he became mature, he decided he wanted to go to Vrindavan and tried to perfect his life. So he migrated to Vrindavan. When he went to Vrindavan, he found a sadhu. And he requested the sadhu for diksha. And the sadhu didn't say no, but he didn't say yes. For some time and time again, he put it off. Finally, one final time he said to the Brahmana, that's the fellow on the right here, I'll give you diksha in 1 week's time, but I want you to bring back first, I want you to bring back someone that's lower than you. And he thought, no problem. I'm this, very capable, qualified Brahmin. So he went about and he thought, first of all, I'm going to searching for someone lower. I'll find a bungi, because in Vrindavan there are street sweepers and they live in a colony kind of living situation. So he found one bungi. He thought, I'm going to bring this to my sadhu. But he was thinking, this bungi, he's always in contact with the dust of Vrindavan, and it's sacred dust of Vrindavan. So I can't really think of him as lower than me. But maybe a cow. That didn't last long, because he was contemplating the characteristics of the cow. And the cow just eats grass and gives milk, abundant milk, to sustain the lives of many, many, many people. And I'm not like that. I can't see the cow lower than me. I should see the cow greater than me. But I know I'll find a dog. Those of you who've been to Vrindavan, you know there's a few dogs here and there. Street dogs particularly. And contemplating the characteristics of the dog, he thought, the dog is one of their outstanding characteristics commonly is they're very faithful. And I'm not so faithful like that. But I know what? My stool. I'll bring some stool and show my sadhu friend that he's I thought, no, that's not right either, because I just eat prasadam here. This is the fruit of prasadam, so I can't bring that lower than me. But in the stool, there's a worm. You see in the picture, there's that little worm. So, but the worm, although in the stool, he takes the stool and transforms it into something it fertilizes the earth. It's something useful for all others to grow nice products. And so he came back to the guru and said, I can't find anyone lower than me. So the guru gave him Diksha. The story is to look to others, however, as very special in the eyes of the plan of the Supreme Lord. And I'm not going to make it within my time because I want to tell two more stories. Here's one nice story. This is Jiva Goswami, and he narrates something from in his Bhakti Sandarbha. Previously we mentioned Priti Sandarbha. This is another one of his writings, Bhakti Sandarbha. And he tells the story of the father of Shravan Kumar. Now, if you think about it, you know who Shravan Kumar is. Shravan Kumar is from Ramayana, but King Dasarath had this gift, this ability that he could find targets for his marksmanship, and not even by seeing the target, he could fire an arrow and hit the target based on sound. So he was in the forest and he heard what sounded to him, as you see in the upper left part of this image, it sounded like a deer drinking water from a reservoir of water. So he shot an arrow. But when he shot the arrow, he heard this human cry. And he thought, uh-oh, it wasn't a deer, it was a human. And that was Shravan Kumar. So, and he went to the spot where Shravan Kumar was lying, and Shravan Kumar was mortally wounded. But before dying, he made this request of King Dasarath: please take care of my old and blind parents. I came to bring them water, and they depend on me as their only support. So imagine how Dasarath felt. He lifted the boy, still somewhat with life in him, and followed what the boy said so he could find his parents, and he found his parents. And he placed the body of the boy on his blind father's lap, and almost in tears was describing everything that had happened. And the father felt deep lamentation, and he cursed Dasarath. As I die from separation from my son, you too will die in the same way. So that's the part that we know from Ramayana. And Jiva Goswami makes reference to the same event described in Agni Purana. And in Agni Purana, this is the purpose of narrating this. The father, being a learned person, understanding Vedic principles, he knew that there's got to be a cause for this misfortune to come to me. So that's what's the discussion in Bhakti Sandarbha. Two possible reasons. Listen carefully. One, here's the Sanskrit from Agni Purana. Perhaps I once saw the deity of the Lord and thought of it as stone or Shila Buddhi, considering it merely a well-decorated stone. This is a serious offense, as the Lord can manifest anywhere. And then the second possible explanation from Agni Purana, perhaps a Vaishnava came once before me, decorated by the signs of Vishnu Bhakti, tilak, etc., and at that moment I did not pay obeisances in my mind and respect him properly, which is an illustration exactly of what Kapila says in chapter 29. Seeing the deity and worshipping the deity with all paraphernalia and all procedures, all done properly, but not respecting the Vaishnavas or those who are also desiring to worship, just being single-minded, focused on the deity and oblivious to or not properly respecting. So that's what the father of Shravan Kumar was thinking. I saw a Vaishnava, but I didn't respect him properly. Maybe that's why this great misfortune came to me. And I think I'm just going to have to close shop because of time. So we allow time for the next speaker so we can end on time this evening. It's all already 7 after. I'll just say quickly, on the image on the screen, that's Chanakya Pandit. And in Chanakya Pandit's writings, called Chanakya Niti, or Niti, he describes the means to achieve prosperity. And one of the key things, just go to this graph, and I'm going to end here. This shows a tree, and at the base of the tree, there's the roots of the tree. And according to Chanakya Pandit's teachings, the roots of the tree is how one gets proper humility. By respecting elders or seniors, one develops a quality in oneself of humility. And humility and discipline, self-control, control the senses, and then that leads further to sense control. Sense control is like the branches of the tree. And when you combine all those little parts, respect for seniors that have wisdom, from them, they're very happy to give you wisdom. And when you get wisdom, then you have a chance to have some knowledge of who you really are. And when you have that life, that you're understanding who you really are, you may then understand the Supreme. And when you understand the Supreme, all desirable things will come to you. That's his teaching. So that's because of time. I'm going to end and invite Urmila to come forward, and you can address the audience. You have stuff? Okay. Huh? Yeah. You got stuff. Good stuff, too. But all of her presentations, all of what both of us have done, it's on YouTube, and you can go back and listen to recordings. Really? Is that good or bad? Uh-huh. She knows how to compliment, I tell you.
And we were having a lot of difficulty getting everything started. It wasn't your problem.
Yeah, of course.
Sorting out their stuff. We were talking about the value of visual education. And we're going on and on about the value of visual education. And I thought, God, why not? After that, I don't know visual, and really inspired me to develop that. So I really wanted to do that.
Well, every now and then I do something, once in a lifetime I may do something nice, beneficial. And then, okay, take it away. So let me get a...
Bring my stuff.
Bring this. By the way, here's the book.
after that, I'm just going to be a big disappointment. Oh, that's not Lord Shiva. Okay, so it is 15th of February, 2026 in Naperville, and this is Shivaratri. So we're going to do a short meditation on some aspects of Lord Shiva. Actually, right now in another part of this country, my daughter or her dance troops are dancing to that song, like probably right now. She's like, Mata, you're going to miss our performance.
Shiva is not different from Krishna, but it is added with this material energy. Therefore, Shiva has turned into Juga. Just sammutamapi tatha samupaiti karyad govindamadi prutam tamaham. But somebody is required for distraction. So that distraction part is taken by Shiva, and he is in charge of this tamagun.
So often people who are not familiar with the tradition are very confused, thinking that there's many gods. You know, it's a common confusion. So there's one God who has many forms, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarumpam. He has many forms. And then he also has many servants. And Lord Shiva is in a very interesting category because he's kind of God and not God. Like milk and yogurt are the same, but they're not the same. You can't, any of you who cook, you know, you can't use them the same. You can't just substitute yogurt and milk. Sometimes in a recipe. And I have these biscuits that I make, and sometimes I make them with milk, and sometimes I make them with yogurt. But in general, yogurt it's practically the same, but there's a culture added. Yes? And if you have made your own yogurt, when I used to live at Gitanagari in 76, so I'd make a yogurt out of the milk there. So you add a little culture, and then it changes the nature. So Lord Shiva, because he's dealing directly with the material energy, and especially he's in charge of tamagun, the mode of destruction, of ignorance, of sleep. Somebody has to do that. So like I have a godbrother, he's retired now, but he used to be a physician, and part of his job was that he worked in the maximum security prison for the criminally insane. Imagine. Shanakarisi from New Jersey. So imagine having that as your job. So that's kind of Lord Shiva's job in the universe. He takes care of the ghosts and hobgoblins and demons, and he tries to bring them to bhakti. And he also is in charge of destruction. You know? So we can say that Vishnu, Shiva are the same, but not the same. Not the same. Yogurt and milk are the same, but not the same. So I want to look at some of Lord Shiva's qualities and then some of his pastimes. So his body is described as fair with camphor, having 3 eyes, crowned with a half moon, graceful, holding a trident, with matted locks holding the Ganges, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, anointed with ashes. Now these are the ashes of sadhus, and wearing a necklace of glorious bones, because these are the bones of sadhus. So he's decorated, although that might not seem very auspicious. In fact, his father-in-law, Daksha, complained that he wasn't very auspicious. This was this ashes and bones business. But actually, it was his way of respecting, because the body of a sadhu becomes spiritualized. Srila Prabhupada will talk about if you put a iron rod in a fire, it becomes hot. Of course, we don't see very many blacksmiths, so we don't see that very often. But you know, if you put a pot on a fire, the pot becomes hot, yes? You get practically as burn touching the pot as you get touching the fire. So the body of a person who's fully engaged in transcendence acts transcendentally, even though it's still apparently made of physical elements. And therefore we show respect to the body even of the departed sadhus. He's situated in his perfection as the master of the senses, knowledge, fruit of activities, and the path of achieving perfection, the friend of the entire world. And by virtue of his full affection for everyone, he is very auspicious. Shiva means auspicious. And again, apparently, you might say, well, he doesn't look very auspicious, you know, snakes and ashes and stuff. But actually, he's full of auspiciousness. My godbrother, Ravinda Sarup Prabhu, a great scholar, once talked about Lord Shiva, that often in the Abrahamic religions, they have an idea that destruction and demoniac beings are governed by an evil being, some kind of a devil who's a competitor with God, and that this devil causes destruction and difficulty, and God's kind of there, I don't know what to do about this. But he said that possibly this came from the idea of Shiva with his trident and taking care of all these demoniac beings. But Shiva is actually the greatest devotee and practically on the level of God and beneficent, that even though it's destruction, this destruction on a major scale, like at the time of the cosmic dissolution, but even little destructions, you know, hurricanes and ice storms and things like that are all under the purview of Lord Shiva. But actually, all of these are beneficial. Right? There's this, and Maharaj was talking about that gentleman in Vrindavan who was thinking that even his excrement was more elevated than he was. And the reason he gave was interesting. But I thought it's also things like excrement nourishes the soil also directly, right? We use animal manure to nourish the soil. That Krishna's arranged that from destruction, from death, comes life. You know, places that don't have a winter have much more problems with certain diseases and insects than places that have a winter that kills off the diseases and things like that. And that there's a beneficial purpose for destruction. That the destruction is to bring new life, like the cells in our body, they're constantly being destroyed and made again. Then he's pleased by the goddess Gauri sitting on his lap, served with splendid paraphernalia by associates whose handsome forms and graceful actions are like his. So he has his eternal consort, who's actually an expansion of the Lord and his consort. So the Lord and his consort, Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, so they also exist as Shiva and Gauri, or Shiva and Parvati, but for the purpose of engaging in this material world. And he's always filled with devotion for Krishna, who's not different from him, but he has this mood that I am a servant. With singing, dancing, and other pastimes, he delights his associates. Although he's the Lord of the universes, he always worships the thousand-headed Sesha with great love as if he were his servant. So what's so interesting about this fact of Lord Shiva being in this mood of servitude, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jivara Swaropaya Krishnara Nityadasa, that our essential nature is that of being a servant. Now, in this world, we don't like the idea of being a servant. I'm just going to guess, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to guess that any of you who have children have never said to your child, I want you to grow up and be a servant. You go to the bookstore, you're going to find lots and lots of books on leadership. Nothing on servitude. Could you imagine, a business conference or something, learn how to be a servant? We're thinking, I want to be the master. We're thinking if I'm going to be happy, if I'm going to get what I want, then I have to master this world. I have to master a trade. I have to master relationships, right? That's what we're trying to learn. Okay, how can I master a trade? How can I make a lot of money? How can I master relationship skills so that I can be happy? Yes? How can I master dealing with my health? How can I master dealing with the law? All these things so I can be happy. But what we don't understand, right? Maharaj was having that verse, Pum Sampuro Dharmo. But what will actually make us happy is the opposite of that. And this is so counterintuitive to us in this world. Like Jesus says, those who try to go first will be last, and those who go last will be first. Lord Chaitanya said, I want to be the servant of 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 the servant. And we think, oh, that would be just awful. Not only do I have to be a servant, I have to be a servant of the servant. And I have to be a servant of the servants of the servant of the servant of the servant. I'll just flow away into insignificance. So I hate to tell you this, we're already very insignificant. Yeah. So I've asked this of thousands of people. How many of you know all the names of your great-great-grandparents? Anyone here? Funny, isn't it? That means our great-great-grandchildren will not know our name. That's the grandchildren of our grandchildren. They will not know our name. Even I remember one of my grandkids came to me and said, hey, Grandma, what's your mother's name again? What to speak of anything that we've done? You know, that Prabhu was reading a little bit of my biography. Yes, I have done all these things. And even my own family members, in a few years, won't even remember my name, what to speak of what I've done. Right? If you look at some star map of the universe, we're hardly a speck. The whole planet is hardly a speck. And sorry to inform you all, but most people in America don't even know there's a place called Naperville. Sorry. Told people I'm going to Naperville. The what? Oh, by Chicago. Oh, okay. And then how many people in Naperville know that we exist? We're extremely insignificant. Extremely insignificant. We are not going to change that through any action in this world. Our significance lies in love. So I tell this story a lot. I was giving a class once and a mother was holding her little baby, maybe 1 month old, in the back. And my entire class, she was looking at her baby's toes for my entire class. And I thought, are they really that interesting, you know? But because they were her baby's toes. You understand? So I'm very insignificant. I'm not really interesting. But to Krishna, I'm interesting. Krishna finds me interesting. Ishwaraham. Krishna says he's in the heart of all living entities. Hridaya Arjuna Jistati says, I am in the heart of all living entities. Krishna is the witness of all of our activities. He cares about everything that we do. And being Krishna's servant, it's not like being a servant in this world. Prabhupada will say that a servant enjoys practically on an equal level with the master. They live in the master's house, you eat the master's food. Maybe you wear the master's clothing when they're finished with it. You wear the master's garlands when they're finished with it. And that's the point at which significance and insignificance come together. That although I have no significance and no meaning in an objective sense, I have significance and meaning in a subjective sense, in terms of relationship. And although I have a oneness with God, and Krishna is willing to share all of his pleasure and all of his opulence with me in that oneness, I am also very happy to be the servant of 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 the servant, to facilitate his happiness. And in that way, I find my significance. And this is so sweet that the Lord himself wants to experience it. How many masters want to find out what it's like to be their own servant? Yeah, I agree with you completely. But for Krishna, that's his pleasure. So he expands to take the role of his own servant. He has this changed form of Shiva to be his own servant because it's so sweet that although I am insignificant to you, I am significant. And I am significant to you in terms of this reciprocity of love and this reciprocity of service. And that is kind of the essence of Shiva Tattva, that he is the Lord in the mood of a servant. And a little changed, so he feels, I am not the same, I am lesser. So let's look at a few of Lord Shiva's pastimes. So the demigods went to the Lord, the great celestial beings in the universe, they went to the Lord and they said, we're being bothered by the demons. There's a constant kind of struggle for supremacy in the universe between the pious celestial beings and demoniac forces. And so the Lord said, why don't you make a temporary truce and churn the ocean of milk and you'll get nectar. But unfortunately, the first thing that came out was poison. And no one knew what to do. They said, let's go to Lord Shiva. Let's go to Lord Shiva. So both the demigods and the demons, they went to him, please save us from this poison. And so Lord Shiva, he drank all of the poison, a whole ocean, and he kept it in his throat. That he can absorb poison, he can absorb difficulty. We're trying to churn an ocean of milk in this process of devotional service, in this process of bhakti yoga. But also sometimes what comes out of that is not so nice. Yes? And Lord Shiva, as the Lord of destruction, he can remove that for us. I like what Romapada Maharaj was talking about, how he's the guardian of the Dham. He likes to go, when you go to Radhakund, some of you have been to Radhakund, there's 4, one of them you can't find anymore, but there's 4 Shiva lingas in the 4 directions to guard the Dham, to remove the impurities. So we also want him to guard the Dham for us and remove our impurities, to destroy what is keeping us from enlightenment and love of God. There's also a very interesting pastime in the Bhagavatam that the demons created flying cities. This is a very popular theme in fiction, right? There's a lot of fictional stories and movies about demons who make huge flying ships, correct? Right? I remember stuff like that when I was a kid, and I think it's still going on, a popular theme. And I've often wondered, why is there that theme? And it's because this actually has happened in human history. Several occasions in several different forms. So there were these flying cities of demons, and Lord Shiva annihilated them. He burnt these dwellings to ashes. Then there's a very interesting story. Again, I don't have time to tell all the details of this story, but there was a great devotee of Lord Shiva called Banasura. And he had gotten a benediction that he could have 1,000 arms. And once he got the benediction, he said, but now I want to fight with someone with these arms. And there's nobody else, there's no one qualified. It's boring, because anyone I fight with, I can immediately defeat them. So I end up just beating up mountains. Because I'm so, like, that was his punching bag at the gym. You know how they have these? So he was just like tearing mountains to pieces. And he said, I want to fight a worthy opponent. And Lord Shiva says, yeah, okay, you arrogant fool. Someday you will fight a worthy opponent who will destroy your false pride. Meanwhile, Banasura's daughter fell in love with Krishna's grandson through seeing him in a dream. And her friend, who was a mystic yogini, brought Krishna's grandson through mystic power to Banasura's city. And they fell in love and they entered into a relationship. And when Banasura found out that his daughter had this illicit relationship with Krishna's grandson, he was very angry. And he arrested Krishna's grandson. And when Krishna came to know of this, he and the Yadus came and wait a minute, you can't do this. You know, you guys kidnapped our Aniruddha, and how is he responsible for this? And so they came and had a big battle. And Lord Shiva took the side of Banasura, a wonderful, wonderful story. And the benediction that's given in the Bhagavatam is, if we remember this, we'll never be defeated. So if ever you're facing some kind of battle in life, you can remember this story. And as part of this battle, Lord Shiva got out his weapon, the Shivaratri, which was great heat. And the Lord sent out his weapon, the Narayaneshvara, which was great cold. And they were fighting it out, and the cold overpowered the heat. And actually, this heat weapon, the Shivaratri, he went to the Lord and he surrendered. He didn't go to Lord Shiva, who was his master, because he could understand his master couldn't save him. These stories are actually bringing out the supremacy of Shiva, of Vishnu and Krishna. And he went to Krishna and he surrendered. May I please attain your shelter. And this is part of the pastime to remember. I mean, sometimes in my life, I've been involved in some difficult situations. And I meditate on this pastime, and then I find that all of the situations just dissipate. There's another really interesting story about Vrikasura. So Vrikasura had a really strange idea. Maybe you've heard the saying that blowing out other people's candles doesn't make yours burn any brighter. Maharaj has been talking a lot about envy, thinking that the way I'm going to become significant is by making everyone else insignificant. No matter how insignificant you try to make others, by the way, we're still going to be equally insignificant. That's just... So Vrikasura had this, logic defying. He said, I want to be immortal, so I'm going to kill everybody else. I can never wrap my head around this thinking. You know, first of all, I thought if everyone's dead, you'll be awfully lonely. And second of all, you're still going to die. I guess you'll live longer than all the people that you killed. So he went to Narada Muni and he said, who should I worship for this? And Narada Muni's like, okay, you better go to Lord Shiva. So he's meditating on Lord Shiva and he's doing yagyas by cutting off pieces of his body and throwing it into the fire. And I would guess Lord Shiva's going, what an idiot. You know, this is not the way you do a yagya. And then it's interesting, Vrikasura became very impatient. He thought, where is he? Where's Lord Shiva? Why isn't he showing up? We may get like that sometimes too. We may think I'm chanting and chanting and chanting. Where's Krishna anyway? How come he hasn't shown up? As if we can demand for him to come. Srila Rupa Goswami talks about the evidence that Krishna is all honorable is that even the demigods have to wait to see him. And that's one way you know someone has a higher status, right? That you have a doctor's appointment at 9:30, but the doctor can keep you waiting until 10:30. Right? And so the servant comes out and says, Indra, would you stop reciting your prayers in the waiting room? You're bothering everybody. Varuna, Krishna's schedule's too packed. Come back another day. And Shiva and Brahma, just hang on. Krishna's busy. He'll see you later. Right? And that Krishna's not just available. You can't just show up and expect to be seen. I was telling this story some years ago and some country in Europe. And after that, I went to the train station with the devotees and we were waiting to get a ticket. And they said, this reminds us of how you have to wait to see Krishna because he's all honorable. So this Vrikasura, he didn't want to wait to see Lord Shiva. So he wasn't really a devotee, you understand? He was trying to be the master of Shiva. So he thought, maybe if I cut off my head and put it in the guy was not very smart. Maybe if I cut my head off and put it in the fire, then I'll see Lord Shiva. Again, this is one of these how would that work exactly? And then Lord Shiva showed up, and Prabhupada said he didn't show up because he was impressed with this demon, but he showed, just like any of us, if you saw somebody about to commit suicide, you would try to do something, right? Don't jump, don't do it, don't do it. So Lord Shiva's like, don't do it, don't do it. What do you want? Just what do you want? And Vikasura said, I want to be able to kill anyone by touching their head. And then Lord Shiva's like, oh my God, now I blew it. I told him he could have whatever he wanted. Dasarath had this problem, right? When he told his wife Kaikeyi, I'll give you whatever you want. And then he had the problem again when he told Vishwamrita, I'll give you whatever you want. So be very careful to whom you say, I'll give whatever you want. Just say that to Krishna. So then Virkasura, he got this benediction. And then, who did he want to kill first? Lord Shiva. Talk about envy. You know, the opposite, right? Of respecting your superiors, respecting your guru. As soon as you get a benediction from your superior, you immediately want to kill them and take their position. You're just using them. This is not bhakti. And he thought, not only did he want to kill Lord Shiva, he thought if I kill Lord Shiva, then I can have Gauri. I can have his wife. Sorry to tell you all this, but all of us in this world, we kind of want that. We want to be able to control the material energy. All of our modern science and technology, it's all have that as its aim. Let me be the owner of material energy. Let me be able to control the material energy. Let me be the master of material energy. We're actually trying to do that. Sorry. Because we can laugh at this foolish demon, you know. But actually, we're trying to do something like that. Anyway, then Lord Shiva didn't know what to do, and he's like running away from this demon, and he's asking the other celestials to help him, and they're like, we can't do anything, you know, you gave him this benediction. And then Lord Shiva came to the planet where Lord Vishnu was, and Lord Vishnu disguised himself as a little Shiva brahmachari with Rudraksha beads and Shiva tilak, and he just bewildered this demon. It doesn't seem like it would be that hard to bewilder him. Pretty bewildered guy himself. But he says to him, oh, son of Sakuni. And the demon thought, oh, he knows my dad. You know, I can trust him. Lord Shiva was the ultimate con man in this. You know what a con man is? A con man is a thief who doesn't steal with a gun. They steal by pretending to be your friend and pretending to like you, right? And then so he's like, oh, son of Sakuni, you should rest. You're really tired. Don't tire your body. That's how you get all your enjoyment in life, is through your body. And what are you doing? Can I help you? And he said, yeah, I'm trying to kill Lord Shiva, who gave me this benediction. And he said, oh, that Lord Shiva, you can't trust him at all. He takes care of the ghosts and hobgoblins. You can't trust him. This is a false benediction. It's not going to work. Oh, really? I got cheated by Lord Shiva? Yeah, for sure. Well, how could I tell if I got cheated by you? Can check it out. I mean, look, just touch your own head. You'll see. It's a wonderful story. We have the sacrifice of Daksha, where Daksha's daughter was married to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva in meditation didn't acknowledge Daksha in any way because he was in such a trance he didn't even see Daksha. And actually, he was showing respect to all living entities by meditating in the Lord in the heart. But Daksha was so offended. He was so offended. Oh, my son-in-law has insulted me. And there's a whole long story that we'll try to really shorten it. And there was this, Daksha starts insulting Lord Shiva. And then Lord Shiva's associates start insulting Daksha, and Lord Shiva leaves, and then everybody starts insulting each other. Absolutely the opposite of Vaishnav etiquette went on. This is like the total, and if you want to study what Vaishnav etiquette is not, you can study this, what happened in this, and they're all cursing each other. May you become atheists, you followers of Lord Shiva, and it was terrible. And the whole sacrifice was just ruined. Right? And then Daksha decides, well, I'll start another sacrifice. Okay, so he starts another sacrifice, but he didn't invite his daughter, who was married to Lord Shiva. And she's like, my dear husband, can I go? My mother and sisters will be there and they'll all be dressing up and I like to dress up and I'd like to go. And Lord Shiva says, I don't think it's a very good idea. You know, your father's very disrespectful to me, your husband. I just don't think it's a good idea. Oh, please. No, I don't think you should go. And then she just left. She just went. She just like, I'm just going to go. And Lord Shiva told his associates, you better follow her. Make sure she's okay. So she goes and her father completely ignores her. Completely ignores her. And as the person in charge of the material energy, she could have destroyed him. But she thought, that's not proper. He's my father. Lord Shiva should do that. So she just said, you know, you're completely contaminated as an offender. And as I've gotten this body from you, I'm also contaminated. So I'm going to enter into mystic trance and leave my body. So she did that. She self-immolated. And when Lord Shiva heard about this, he became furious at the death of his wife due to his father-in-law's behavior. So he took one of his hairs and dancing, he dashed it to the ground and he created this demon, this being who went to the sacrifice along with Lord Shiva's associates, his ghosts and hobgoblins and stuff, and they destroyed the sacrifice. And then with the same axe that was going to be used to kill the sacrificial animals, they cut off Daksha's head. At which point Daksha was given the head of a goat. And he came to Lord Shiva to apologize. As we talked about earlier today, though, it wasn't a very genuine apology, because in his next life he pulled the same thing with Narada Muni. So he was yeah. So as we said, Lord Shiva is in charge of destruction. And at that point, he has scattered hair and he pierces all of the rulers of all the directions. He destroys all of them and he dances a mad dance of destruction. There's one nice pastime where Krishna is fighting with Jarasandhar and creating like rivers of blood, and it's described that it looked like the playground of Shiva. We have the Ganges River here in this world to some extent by the grace of Lord Shiva. So Bhagirata had prayed for the Ganges to descend. And finally, Mother Ganges appeared to him and said, but when I descend, I'll be so powerful that I'll break the earth. I'll cause a disturbance in the earth. And Lord Shiva agreed. Bhagirata prayed to Lord Shiva, can you please stop her descent? And Lord Shiva thought Ganga was a little proud of her destructive abilities. So maybe I should temper that a little. So he kept Ganga in his hair and wouldn't let her out. And finally Bhagirata said, can you please let her out of your hair? And she came out of Lord Shiva's hair. So Ganga is very sacred as the spiritual water from beyond the universe, having washed the foot of the Lord as Vamandev, and having been sanctified also by pouring over the body of Lord Shiva.
Shankara
Well, you're lucky. I'm on my last slide. So this is a nice little meditation on Lord Shiva's identity, Lord Shiva's qualities, some of Lord Shiva's pastimes. Of course, he has his own sampradaya. And we don't want to pray to Shiva as an independent god. He doesn't like that. That's very disturbing to him. He doesn't like to be appreciated or approached in that way. But he's very happy to be approached as a servant of Krishna. He's very happy to be approached as the destroyer of obstacles. He's very happy to be approached as the protector of the Dham and the protector of Krishna's Leelas. So if we want to be able to enter into the Leelas of Krishna, we need to ask these great personalities, so many great personalities, please destroy my foolish arrogance based on my false ego that on a materially objective platform, I'm a very significant controller of the world. And please instead give me the bliss of knowing that my relevance, my significance, my meaning is there eternally in this relationship of service. So thank you very much. So the temple here is selling some of my books, and they've asked me, would you tell people to buy your books? I'm like, sure. So we have 2 book tables here. I'm happy to sign the books for you. We have Career Dharma, which explains how you can find out what is your nature, how you can get work according to your nature, how an ideal society would function. It really points out what's wrong with modern society, how we can fix it, and how we can have a satisfying life. The Bhagavad Gita, that's a study guide. It was designed for children, but a lot of adults like it. It has summaries of all the chapters, ways of memorizing verses, questions and answers. Krishna meditations, how you can find Krishna in every moment of your life, in the water that you drink, in the sun going through your window, in your abilities, every single thing in life, how you can meditate on that connected with Krishna. And then the great mantras, a really short little book, a very short little simple read on how you can purify your chanting from offenses. So how you can gain the most from your chanting. And Essence Seekers is a novel. So it gives instructions in the form of a story of how one can go from materialistic life to full Krishna prema, to full love of God. So it's written for adults, but a lot of teenagers really like it. If you have any teenagers, that would be a nice book for them. It's also a kind of book you could gift to people who aren't familiar with Krishna consciousness. It's written in the form of a metaphor, like for people in general. So again, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Shiva ki jai. Gaur Premanande.